My next guest is an ex-Chicago kingpin who went from dealing billions of dollars worth of drugs as one of North America's most successful cocaine traffickers to bringing down the infamous drug lord El Chapo as a government informant. He is former Sinaloa cartel kingpin Margarito J. Flores Jr., who joins us here on set. Jay, it's great to see you again. We've been together on several occasions. I feel like it's necessary every time to clarify for the audience why you are wearing that mask, why you're wearing the sunglasses.
Unfair persecution. My life will continue to be in danger. I testify against the most deadliest and powerful drug cartels that existed. So yes, it's for my safety. And I know that many individuals might think that I still look the same, and but I don't. But I do it for my safety.
Well, we can all appreciate that, testifying against El Chapo, going against the Sinaloa cartel. The Sinaloa cartel is one of the cartels, the primary cartel, in fact, that the Trump administration says they're going after and going on offense. What do you think about this as an approach, going on offense?
Well, it's great, especially today as kickoff, right? I returned that analogy, but taking it to where, the cartel's territories, as we saw with the bombing of a boat with drug traffickers, I think it sends a clear message to every drug trafficking organization and cartel that the Trump administration is taking this very seriously, and they're not playing any games.
But how high and how far do we have to escalate the war? Jay, you have talked about this with me. I mean, the number of drugs coming into Mexico and then coming into America, and the amount of money going back into Mexico, it's like every time we do something, it's swatting at a gnat. There's a swarm of gnats when it comes about this with me. I mean, the number of drugs coming into Mexico and then coming into America, and the amount of money going back into Mexico, it's like every time we do something, it's how far do we have to escalate the war? Jay, you have talked about this with me. I mean, the number of drugs coming into Mexico and then coming into America, and the amount of money going back into Mexico, it's like every time we do something, it's swatting at a gnat. There's a swarm of gnats when it comes to the cartels.
Yes, I believe the seizure of these precursor chemicals, I believe it was 600,000 kilograms of precursors, that has a more significant impact on drug trafficking overall. But I think it's a multifaceted approach. It needs to continue. But as Mr. Holman said, that we're taking it to them, away games. But we all know that the team always plays better at home, and I don't think that we have done enough things here at home to going after them.
You've told me about that, like going after the cash here in America. Like that, you've said that would cut off their lifeblood because they literally ship cash back to Mexico in 18-wheelers.
Yes, absolutely. It's the reason why I'm here. It's the reason why I started doing this. I run a consulting company called Kingpin to Educator, and what I'm pushing for is that we do more going to go after the bulk U.S. currency that goes across the country and across the border into Mexico each and every day. We're talking about billions of dollars, sometimes untouched. Me, myself, and my organization, the 10 years I was trafficking, we exported back close to $3 billion of bulk U.S. currency.
You exported $3 billion of U.S. currency?
Yes, sir, in total.
And how did you export that? Was it in 18-wheelers?
18-wheelers, tractor trailers, commercial vehicles. And there is no seizures in the 10 years.
None?
None. And I think that there's so many more things we could do here in terms of going after. That's their lifeline. And I think for law enforcement, and for the last 50 years, we've been going after drugs and drug cartels the same way. It's going after the drugs, going after kingpins. We've seen that you have dinosaurs of drug lords in American prisons, which I applaud the administration. They're doing a great job. It just has to be a whole plan laid out, especially here in the United States.
You and I have had a fascinating conversation about whether or not the United States military should be going into Mexico, drones, special war fighters. And you've said the Mexican people would actually welcome that. But it is interesting to hear you say, what we might need to do first, just cut off the supply of money that's right here in America.
Yes, we're talking about billions of dollars. It's a market, it's a business. And all these strategies that the Trump administration is putting into place, I think is great. I believe that the market will be indicator of what's actually going on. And for right now, the market is indicating that there's still a lot of supply. Drugs are at a time low across every market across the United States and Canada.
In terms of price.
Yes, in terms of price. And I think there needs to be more done there. But I do believe that the Mexican people will be happy to get help going against these criminal organizations.
Well, you told me you feel a little safer as of today,
Yes.
and we wish for you your safety. Thank you always for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate
Great to see you, Jay.
Yeah,
okay.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Now, on serious matters, the Trump administration is under fire from the usual suspects for stopping a big shipment of narcotics from reaching US soil. They blew up the boat, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has been clear that this action was necessary to save American lives.
The President of the United States has determined that narco-terrorist organizations pose a threat to the national security of the United States. I don't need to explain to you why. They are traffickers of people, they are traffickers of deadly drugs, they are traffickers of all kinds of illicit means, and they use the money that they generate to destabilize governments in the region, which in and of itself then poses a threat to the United States. These are organized, corporate-structured organizations who specialize in the trafficking of deadly drugs into the United States of America. They pose an immediate threat to the United States. Period. If you're on a boat full of cocaine or fentanyl or whatever headed to the United States, you're an immediate threat to the United States. And the President, under his authority as Commander-in-Chief, has a right, under exigent circumstances, to eliminate imminent threats to the United States. And that's what he did yesterday in international waters, and that's what he intends to do. We're not going to sit back anymore and watch these people sail up and down the Caribbean like a cruise ship. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen anymore. They're not going to bring drugs into the United States. We're going to stop them. I know a lot of presidents have talked about doing it. This president is not a talker, he's a doer, and he's going to do it.
Josh, he went on to explain just simply stopping these boats and making arrests doesn't work. It's never worked. The drug cartels know they will lose a certain percentage of their cargo in that manner. They may rethink trafficking when their boats are being blown out of the water.
So another wonderful quip, by the way, from Marco Rubio. You know, Marco Rubio is genuinely excelling in this role as Secretary of State. I mean, he already was a pretty good senator in many ways, but he was built for this role. I mean, Marco Rubio is living his best life here in Washington, D.C., I would say, at this time. And he's totally right on the merits here as well. You know, one of Rubio's very first international trips, I think if memory serves, it actually might have been his very first trip back in late January, early February, after Donald Trump and the administration took office. Rubio went to multiple Central American countries, and the message there was unmistakable. In fact, the Wall Street Journal had a whole op-ed about it at the time there, which that the message that this administration was sending was that, yes, we're going to engage with the whole world, where we're going to engage with Europe. That was J.D. Vance in Munich. We're going to engage in the Middle East. We're going to engage with our Chinese Communist Party rivals, et cetera, there. But we're really going to pay very close attention to our own backyard. We're going to pay very close attention here to Latin America. There's a very venerable old tradition of American foreign policy thinking going all the way back to the James Monroe presidency. It was called the Monroe Doctrine 200 years ago in the early 19th century there. It's a very old, more conservative, realist way of thinking about foreign policy. And this administration is very much living it out. But, you know, more specifically when it comes to Venezuela and the narco traffickers, yeah, he's right. You know what, Rita? Look, my cousin, may his memory be blessed, my cousin overdosed and died from fentanyl-laced cocaine 8 years ago. Way too many Americans, way too many Americans have similar stories to me. This has been a horrific epidemic there, whether it's coming from Mexico, whether it's coming from Venezuela and the Maduro regime, whether it's coming from Cuba with their Chinese allies and so forth. It doesn't matter. It has to be stopped. America has the will. It has the means to stop it there. And under this administration, Rita, it's going to do it.
Now, let's hear from the leader of Reform, possibly the next British Prime Minister, if the polls are right. Nigel Farage was in Washington, D.C., giving evidence to a US congressional committee holding a hearing into whether European laws threaten Americans' right to speak freely in the US. Here, Nigel Farage talks about just how far Britain has fallen, and he mentions the extraordinary case of Graham Linehan that shows no one is safe from these Orwellian anti-free speech laws.
You know, I come from the land of Magna Carta. I come from the land that gave us the Mother of Parliaments, and it doesn't give me any great joy to be sitting in America and describing the really awful authoritarian situation that we have now sunk into. J.D. Vance did us all a service at the Munich Security Conference back in February this year. He really got this debate up and running, and it's a vital one. Graham Linehan, the comedic writer, and he put out some tweets months ago when he was in Arizona And months later, he arrives at Heathrow Airport to be met by the comedic writer, and he put out some tweets months ago when he was in Arizona. And months later, he arrives at Heathrow Airport to be met by 5 armed police. Armed police, not a big deal in the USA, a very big deal in the United Kingdom. 5 of them. Graham Lyon, the comedy writer, comedic writer, and he put out some tweets months ago when he was in Arizona. Heathrow Airport to be met by 5 armed police. Armed police, not a big deal in the USA, a very big deal in the United Kingdom. 5 of them. And he was arrested and taken away for questioning. He's not even a British citizen. He's an Irish citizen. This could happen to any American man or woman that goes to Heathrow that has said things online that the British government and British police don't like.
Josh, I've had Graham Lyon on my program. I've had a look at what he posted. It's not in any way extreme or warranting police attention. How many Americans travelling to the UK could expect to be met by police and placed under arrest for tweets or social media posts that the British government deem offensive?
So, Rita, first of all, I actually saw Nigel Farage a few hours after he gave that testimony. I'm here in Washington, D.C., actually to speak at a conference, and I saw Nigel Farage. It was a whole reopening of the American affiliate of GB News, his conservative British TV network. There were a lot of Trump administration officials there. Caroline Levitt was there. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick were there. Many other pretty higher up luminaries as well. And the message was pretty unmistakable, which that the Trump administration would love nothing more than for Nigel Farage to be the next prime minister of the UK. Frankly, many other pretty higher up luminaries as well. And the message was pretty unmistakable, which that the Trump administration would love nothing more than for Nigel Farage to be the next prime minister of the UK. Frankly, I would love nothing more than for Nigel Farage to be the next prime minister of the UK, because if the UK has any chance of saving itself from going entirely through the looking glass, Alice in Wonderland style, then I think Nigel Farage is very much the man for the job, because they really are at this moment tragically going through the looking glass. I'll give you an example, which I think will kind of hammer home this point. So last summer, there was this whole uprising. There was a horrific killing of a second generation Rwandan in Britain, of these girls at a dance class there in the south of England there, and then with these Muslim riots and then kind of other riots in response there. And I did a recording on my show, the Josh Hammer Show, and I talked about two-tier Keir Starmer for the Labour Party the prime minister there. Rita, I have a friend who is a lawyer in London who messaged me on WhatsApp and said, Josh, you should probably delete this episode. I said, what are you talking about here? He said, you actually might get dragged into British court for defamation for this. Now, as a matter of principle, I didn't delete it. I have not been dragged into court there. But that's just to say, Rita, that is seriously how on edge I think a lot of folks in the UK are. It is Orwellian totalitarian stuff. It's disgusting, frankly.
It is.